So you like to make music. That's great. But let's say you want to work with someone and make music together. That sounds really cool too, right? It's really complicated if you make it complicated. But if you don't make it complicated, it's actually a really fun experience for you to do with your friends, even with some acquaintances, and occasionally you'll be able to do it with some strangers too, which is a little complicated, but we'll get there in a second. This is a video on the do's and don'ts of collaborating with another artist in the electronic music world, but that can also be applied to any genre, any collaboration, you name it. You just need to be careful with what you do and how you do it. Let's get started. But first, noun. The action of working with someone to produce or create something. Simple enough, but remember the most important part is that you're working with someone together as a team. So ask yourself, do you want to work with another artist? If the answer is no, why the are you here? If the answer is yes, then you have to establish what your relationship is with them. If they're a mutual acquaintance or a friend of yours, as long as there is some sort of established communication with them beforehand, reaching out is really easy to do, and probably the nicest thing you can do is just to be like, hey, I have an idea, or hey, I really like your work, would you like to work together? If they're a stranger, well, yeah, hold your horses. I don't expect DJ Snake to respond to any of my DMs, but if he did, I wouldn't ask him to collaborate with me in the first 5 seconds of getting to know him. I would wait probably a year, etc., etc. So things for you to think about. No matter what, if they say no, just leave it at that. That's okay. They don't have to collaborate with you, but don't pester them about it either. More likely than not, they're busy and they have a lot of to do. And it's nothing against you per se, but let them reapproach you if the time is right. Now, when it comes to actually making the song, that's where we get a little bit more in depth as to how you go about doing that. A lot of songs start from scratch. So for instance, you can go ahead and come up with an idea, discuss the idea together, figure out what's going to sound like, what kind of genre is it going to be? Is it going to be a bass house song? Is it going to be a tech house song? Also, what kind of goals you have for this track? Do you want to self-release this track? Do you want to make a song that's catered toward a label so that they're more likely to sign it? Also, how do you want to work with this collaborator? Do you want to start something and then send it to them through stems? Do you want to work on this together through Zoom? A second way to do it is actually using retired projects or unfinished projects that someone had started. There is no shame in moving forward after working on a project that you decide you've spent too much time on and it's not working out the way you want it to. That project could be a gold mine for someone else. And then there's actually a natural process of things where things just kind of suddenly show up. So, for instance, you could be on Discord talking with your friends, you are streaming a project that you're working on, you think, oh wait, this person's really talented too, I'd love to work with them. So you just casually suggest, hey, you want to help finish this project with me? And then sure enough, you guys have a project together. So there's so many different ways a collaboration could even happen. It could be spontaneous, out of thin air, or it could be very well thought out and meticulous. So next, we talk about organizing the pass back. So let's say you start a project or you're working on an unfinished project. It's really important on your behalf to make sure that this is organized as possible, because the faster this other person's able to work on it, the faster they're able to actually be creative. There's a couple of things to consider. One, for all of your stems, they should all be the same length. Let's say your project's 2 minutes long and you only have a sample that hits once in the first 30 seconds. That stem should also be 2 minutes long amongst all the other layers in your track. Another thing to consider is that even though it's really convenient and export all individual tracks, sometimes that's not very organized and all the tracks will be named their title without any kind of organization, or you give it a label that doesn't necessarily correlate with what group it's supposed to go in. You could confuse the artist you're working with. I individually export tracks in each bus that I use, be it drums, bass, vocals. What I do is I group them up, and when you're labeling them in the export window, you can go ahead and type the word bass first, or project name bass, or project name drums. And what that will do is that for all of those different layers, it will go ahead and categorize and put the word drums or bass first before the name of the actual layer. That way, the person, when they're organizing all the files, doesn't get confused as to where each different layer is supposed to go. You want to label the folder, what BPM it is, and what key you have everything in. And it's always possible that you two will be working in the same DAW, then send a project over to someone and with everything contained can often work. However, it can also not work because of the different VSTs you guys have, and more often than not, it's not going to be perfectly fit to how you want it, which is why using stems is the most popular way when it comes to collaborating. And also take your time figuring out what home it wants to be in. There's no rush when you finish a track. Just because you finish a track doesn't mean it has to come out tomorrow. Some of my favorite tracks took over a year and a half to get released. Enjoy the process and have fun. That's why we're here. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave something in the comments below. I'd love to answer them. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Patreon for any more in-depth knowledge, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay crazy and stay foxed.